You're ready. Right, good afternoon, YouTube. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Not the busiest week in the calendar, obviously, but it is. There's a few things on the menu for us anyway as we roll through. Let's start maybe with some interesting moves in the gold market this morning. We've had some pretty lively action in gold. I know we'll look at the big picture first. We've been knocking at those all-time highs, haven't we? That we posted after the Fed last week. On Thursday after the Fed, we had a big push up, took out those all-time highs, and then gave a chunk of it back. It's now looking like it's hungry for more once again. Levels to bear in mind, we have just kind of ran up from the point of control yesterday morning all the way up to taking out those value highs for the month. This was a level I had in mind for a potential bit of weakness, and it's kind of shot through it a little bit, but turned around for now. Very much one to be watching, I'd say. And if we look at it in a little bit more of a kind of micro view, you can tell where we've been in this today on the volume profile. So let's clean this chart up a little bit for you. A little bit of chop again in the morning, a bit of an impulse, and at 8 o'clock it did come back, and as you often get, like little retests around market opens when there's an increase in volatility and an increase in volume, and it sucked down into that point of control, which was at the time the high volume for the day, and then we kind of sprung out of there pretty aggressively. This was that initial test. If I pop on the value high for the month, you can see how it, at least to begin with, tried to find some resistance here, but then the move was just so ferocious that it managed to pass through that, albeit it's now come and giving it up a little bit now. So this is potentially a little moment of potential weakness in the gold market, but stepping in the way of this. I'm not desperate to be short gold at any stage over the next few months. I feel like the long side of the market might be the smart way to play this. Other markets that have done well this morning, well, if you look across the European indices, it's been a similar story, right? You see the Euro stocks, DAX, FTSE all having nice moves. Talking about the volume profiles, actually, we can take a look at the Euro stocks with this and see where the low for the day was today. And this is where we use and teach these levels as of the 7 o'clock open on the Bund. Then the 8 o'clock open on the Euro stocks. We went down, grabbed that liquidity out of the value high for the month so far, and pushed on nicely, seeing what 30, the 40 tip rally out of that, which is no small move for the Euro stocks, albeit giving some of that back itself too. But yeah, similar moves across the board, whether you look at the FTSE or the DAX, the European indices faring fairly well. You can see what DAX up nearly 0.6%. When you compare that to what's going on in the US, well, the Dow's unchanged on the day, and if anything, it looks like it's down, right? It's certainly lower than the 8 o'clock open that we had in Europe. Nasdaq not quite looking quite so bad, but certainly below that 8 o'clock level, and the S&P as well, taking out that European open level this morning. So the strength that we've seen relatively sustained in the European indices is not being received as well in the US. And maybe we can have a look at some of the data that's come out to try and explain this. To me, it doesn't really do enough to justify it. We had durable goods data. So for those of you who weren't on this morning, we have this lovely document put together by the Bundesbank, gives them credit where it's due. It kind of identifies what are the key or highest volatility moves in the market. And the durable goods are way down the list, right? We're seeing, I say that you've got GDP and PCE, and I do care about the PCE at the moment because that's an inflation number. But generally speaking, it's below things like the Purchasing Managers Index, below the University of Michigan sentiment, below, crucially, the Conference Board indices. What are they? CB Consumer Confidence, right? This is the Conference Board Index. The confidence number is, albeit only slightly, but bigger or more impactful on the market historically than the durable goods number. But let's look at 12:30 today. Durable goods numbers came in slightly better than forecast on the core, and again, moderately better than forecast on the headline figure. We did have some revisions, albeit again moderate on the headline and moderate again on this. So to be honest, this is a bit of a damp squib of a data release. We're not seeing big beats or misses compared to what we've had before. Good, 2-3% in certain cases. We've seen on this, and this was a 0.2. So this shouldn't have moved the market to a significant degree, in my opinion. But if you look at when the market moved, it was shortly after that 12:30 print. So maybe there's something under the hood of this data that I'm not reading, or perhaps it's little bit of profit taking as we roll into the start of the US session. Don't forget this US session. We've only got a couple more days this before we get back to our normal time of 2:30. Yeah, I know there's some debate as to whether this is better or worse for markets to open at this time. I kind of prefer it on one hand that you get more of the US session at this time of day because it comes a little bit earlier. You get the data earlier. You get a longer. I mean, I tend to knock out here around 5 o'clock most of the time. So if I'm able to do that, I'm only missing the last 3 hours of the day rather than the last 4 hours of the day in the US. But as I mentioned yesterday, having kids means I don't get to trade the close at 8. But normally they're asleep by then. So normally asleep by 9. So normally I can do that then. So for me, probably happy on balance to have it swing back in the other direction. Allows me a bit more time in the morning for activity. So the so the numbers we want to focus on then going forwards are going to be the consumer confidence figures, right? We're seeing a 106.9 expectation, but a few nice beats and misses recently. There's quite a big one, about an 8. And similarly, we had about a 4 in here, but prior to that, they were fairly in line. So you want to see something. I think I've done the average beat and miss, and we're looking for about 3.4, well, exactly 3.4 difference is the average beat or miss over the last 6 months in this. So if you're looking at a number north of 110.3 to be kind of bullish dollar, short gold, probably short stocks, and something lower than 103.5 for the opposite trade to that. A bit of weakness in the dollar, strength in the gold, strength probably in the stocks. Although stocks don't always digest the good news as bad news as you expect. So yeah, I can say that with more confidence with gold and the dollar. Sure. So yeah, we await those numbers, and I mean this isn't the biggest figure, right? So this wouldn't put me off trading the pre-market in the US, because often if there's big numbers out at 3 o'clock, I would kind of hang fire until after 3 o'clock, simply because there's not a huge window of opportunity from when the market opens at 2:30 until when we have to maybe get out of our positions before 3 o'clock, unless you want to just hold through news, which can work, but can also cause some pretty horrible slippage as well, depending on what happens. So I typically don't put myself in those positions and would wait for at least this news release. And if it's not that significant, maybe another half an hour to that 3:30 time print. Often those 3:30 time prints, those half an hour time prints are interesting. So that's why we often say 3 o'clock is a good time to trade on a normal open. But with the earlier times and everything else, giving it half an hour after the news might be smart. So looking at 2:30 potential time if you want to take things slowly. And we'll get to the options gamma as well in a minute. And they are not up yet. We only get them at open, but the close in gamma from yesterday was at 15. So I'll bring you those up just now, and we can have a little glance at what's going on in the broader stock markets. So I can bring this. Yeah, so maybe we want to have a look at that again, that closing gamma from yesterday. We literally closed there at the 15s, and we haven't really traded there. So this is potentially in sight. If there is a little bit more weakness around, just try and take out that level. There is a bit of downward momentum on this. We saw that from the ES contract. It is now getting this like staircase down effect on the S&P. And when you get the points of control moving lower like this, and if you do sustain below it, then that can create a real downward kind of force, like a pneumatic drill, just keep pushing down the price. Equal to 30 seconds when we open now. If it closes above there, then we don't even need to know about that. But one to bear in mind, if you do see this sort of staircase effect happening consistently throughout a day, they tend to be trend days when you're using the profiles, whether it's volume profile or market profile, whichever way you use it. If you see those sort of changes happening, they can be some of the best days to trade it. Profile very good entries, very tight stops in a trend day. And that's kind of what you're looking for. All trades if you can. Good entries, tight stops, and big moves, and trend days typically are. So let's look to the open. I'll drag the. So we got the S&P over in the top left-hand side, and the Nasdaq on the top right. The Dow. Well, the Dow had quite the move before the open there. See, that had quite the push higher. 17s up to nearly a 50 point rally and 50 tick rally in fact for the Dow. yeah, it's not to be sniffed at. Maybe it's coming back to get the liquidity out of the value area for the week. Yeah, for point of control for the week. Remains to be seen. It's always pretty busy and pretty lively at this time of day. So I typically would wait for let's have a clear view with some news that's dropped. I would look to wait for the gamma, and we have it. So here's the gamma levels. Seeing large gamma down at 5,200. So where we are now, that's not to do with the ES contracts. This is the futures contract. That is to do with the SPX. So that would take us all the way down here, right? Normally, not always. You often trade the first large gamma as we did yesterday, and on most days you would end up going and trading those levels. Here on the Fed, this was a really nice one. Last Wednesday night when we kind of pinged from the one gamma level down to another before taking off. Well, let's see if we're going to get something similar. I'll draw these up and put them on Twitter now. But yeah, now seeing well, actually after the first minute that has eased off. It does take. I normally wait for 2 minutes to go by before committing to this. And so maybe the large gamma is around that 25 where we're sitting now, and you'd argue that this would be slightly larger up at 50. So yeah, the zeros, the 25s, and the 50s all look like they're in play today. Yeah, could be an interesting trade. There's plenty of range on this today compared to what we've had in recent days. So perhaps a bit more of an interesting day than we had on, say, Monday, when yesterday was a bit of a non-event, right? Look at how boring that was. I talked about this morning, but it was about a 14-point range from lows to highs the whole day yesterday. I'm going to put it out there and say we're going to get something double that. So yeah, that's my view on those. Let's take a look at what's going on in the indices. Yeah, seeing the strength from the initial strength from the Dow, and kind of undid the whole move there. Right, came back right back to where it came from, and it looks like he wants to go get it done again. So we've been up, down, and maybe back up again 50 ticks in the last kind of 7 minutes or so. Pretty aggressive moves across the board there. Yes, but with half an hour to go till the news, probably going to take it easy. We do have some bond auctions tonight as well, though. The 2-year bond auction didn't do a great deal yesterday, but we have the 5-year US bond auction at 5 o'clock tonight. So if you want to pay attention to your yields, then doing so on the 5-year yields at 5 o'clock, you can do that by simply going in and typing in, US 05Y on your trading view, and it'll give you the 5-year government bond yields, and you can see how these yields are reacting around that time. Big strength in the yields, likely good use for the dollar, less so for the stocks, and vice versa. So do bear that in mind. These bond auctions can move the market a little bit. They normally aren't not bang on the hour either. It's normally a minute or two later, so just be conscious of that. And you want to see maybe a significant move, maybe a 0.1% move on the yields before you kind of justify it as a real move. And even then, sometimes they can come back. So sometimes maybe give it a little bit of time to breathe, because they can create nice moves into a close, and if they are significant. Yeah, quiet start to the day. It's been a quiet start to the week so far. So hopefully the confidence numbers or this bond market can get us moving. The stock markets really haven't been the place to be yet this week. Commodities and definitely. Right. I'll leave it there for you today, and we will be back with you tomorrow. I'm not with you in the morning. I think Jerry's out of action as well at the minute. So let's maybe just quickly touch on that we have 8 o'clock at the open Spanish CPI figures. So not as consistent a mover of the market as it was maybe this time last year, but the fact that it's news bang on high volatility times can create a nice trade for you. So do bear that in mind if you are looking to get into anything tomorrow around the open. That you probably at least want to be aware of what this number is and whether you use it to trade or not. Make sure you don't step on a rake trading the open into that. Apart from that, CPI numbers overnight, and then pretty quiet throughout tomorrow as well as we roll into Thursday's month end, where we'll be back on the YouTube prior to that. So have a good one, and we will see you again.